I'm Richie Bamlet, Urban Forest Manager with City of Chico, and we're going to be going on a little tour of the tree canopy in Cape Acres. There were 27 trees that we surveyed. 21 of them we deemed needed some kind of work, and of those 21, 17 were classed for removal. So those trees were deemed to be really too unsafe. I wouldn't respond to any tree trimming. The chance of them falling down were not an acceptable level for me, so we made the difficult decision to take those trees down. I will take a look at some of those. So to my right, we can see one of the giant valley oaks that we have within the park, and this may be one of the tallest trees that we have. Valley oaks grow to over 100 feet tall. This tree is 110 feet tall, and as you can see, it has long towering branches that were running all the way through and running out and hanging long and heavy, hanging in a horizontal position. And that's the typical type of branch that just cracks without any warning, usually on a hot summer day when it's still and calm in the afternoon. And guess what? That's when the park is the busiest. So it's really not a phenomena that we're happy having in the park. So I can't control the temperature, but I can control the weight and the length of those limbs. So that's what we were focusing on this week. So every tree was labeled. And as we can see here, so this tree is number 102. So every tree was measured for its height, its diameter, and you can see this tree is ginormous. So we want to do everything we can to hang on to this tree for as long as possible. Cape Acres is a wonderful place for the kids to play. They come to seek play among nature, and these big fellas are providing that experience for everybody. So we took a full assessment of every tree. We're looking for any deformities, any evidence that the tree is under stress. We're looking at the foliage. We're looking at evidence of rot and also previous breakout. Okay, so some of these trees do have a history of breaking out, and kind of like the 3 strikes rule. If a tree has a history of repeatedly losing limbs that are large and can cause damage, that tree is now going to nominate itself to be a candidate for removal. And that's what happened to these 2 trees behind me. You can see right now that these 2 trees have now been turned into what we call megaliths. These were also 2 valley oaks. These 2 trees had a different form to the 2 that we've seen earlier. These 2 trees were in severe decline. And if I want to use a technical term, in arborist circles we use the term synchronous cohort senescence. Okay, so that's a fancy way of saying these 2 trees were slowly dying together. Not an acceptable thing to have happening in a busy park where people are sitting underneath, they're passing through to go to the restrooms. They both had a history of large breakouts. So suddenly dropping limbs without any warning. You can see along the top rail of the cyclone fence, you see the various dings and bends. They were from branches. You see there's another one there, that's another ding. All around the perimeter of the park, we see evidence of where limbs fell, totally unannounced. So looking again around the other side of tree 104, when we look up into the canopy, we can see evidence of some of the cuts we've made. They're kind of difficult to see right now, but we had a lot of long extended limbs in that upper canopy, and that's almost 100 feet up. Now bear in mind, last summer some of those branches did fall and they almost took out this play structure. Okay. To me, that exceeds the threshold of safety for this tree, so that's why we selected this tree for quite a heavy prune to reduce the limbs on those long, heavy limbs that we know can fall without any warning. So behind me you have an example of one of the other valley oaks that we assessed, and we did work on this tree. Taking a look up the trunk, you can see where it forks, and then the right hand fork, there's nothing left. Okay, so that tree last summer spontaneously just cracked in half. The entire top of that half tree fell right between the cheese and those picnic benches. Again, on a hot summer day, it was packed with park users, the air was calm, no warning, spontaneously broke out. And here we have behind us a group of the California sycamores that are in Caper Acres. And if we follow this tree up about halfway, you can see there's quite a big cut has been made. Now that limb grew out right across the play structures. You see the swings over here, over the play area, the Humpty Dumpty sand pit. That tree did shed a large limb in the summer of 2018 and left a giant wound in that trunk. Now if that trunk was left unattended, that limb would have fallen eventually. So we had to take the bold decision to make quite a big cut on that limb. As you can see, that's a bigger cut. We don't normally want to make a cut that big, but because of the safety reasons of the park, we really had no choice. Here we have the remaining stump from one of the trees that I decided to remove. This tree really wasn't viable. It was suppressed by the bigger California sycamore that it's growing less than 3 feet away from. And as we suspected, it was totally hollow. Okay, so we have it full of shavings right now, but when you look in here you can see it's starting to hollow out, which isn't always mean the end of the tree, but it's one of the deciding factors. That now that this has a cavity inside, that's not good, but it also had a cavity at the top. So it had a cavity running all the way through the tree. That's not a good thing. With it being so close to this tree, it really wasn't contributing much to the park, wasn't providing any shade, because this tree was doing all of that work. So we decided to remove this tree. We haven't stump ground this tree because its roots are intertwined with this tree. So we've decided just to leave it. Kids can sit on it, play in the wood shavings, get their hands dirty. It's all good. Here we have the former location of one of the large California sycamores that was growing in the park. This tree was hollow, growing right next to the birthday ring. The thing that I really didn't like about this tree was that it was leaning pretty severely over towards the focal areas where people like to hang out. Parents converge while they're watching their little ones play on the play structures. This tree was not in a good shape. From the outside it looked healthy to a lot of people, but as I examined it and I sound them with a hammer to see how hollow they are, this tree was hollow. Okay, so this tree unfortunately had to go as well. So it's one of the 4 trees out of the 27 that's growing in the park that we decided to remove.